we were thinking with Maria that it would be actually great to hear about latest interesting examples of transformation that actually have inspired you lately. Actually, Annica was telling a lot about them as well, from her own perspective, and so any examples that you find really interesting and worth to benchmark.
Well, I will not speak of my own business now, because I do believe that if we look at the world outside of us, I think it's immensely inspirational to see that within such a short amount of time, we have developed vaccines. When we realize that the world needs a solution and that it is urgent, people and scientists and organizations have come together and they have developed vaccines for the pandemic. And this shows really the power of actually making things happen in a short time space that we have not been able to do before. And we have also seen organizations and businesses totally kind of redefining their business models, changing the behaviors in a very short time span. I would only wish that we could come around and have the same sense of urgency on sustainability, because there is going to be a significant need for investment money and for effort to change existing infrastructure into the infrastructure of the future. And the new normal that we would go back to should be a more sustainable normal. So, but it is inspirational when we see these efforts being made and the progress that we can make, for instance, in vaccination.
That's right. How about Sandra?
Yes. So just a couple of months ago, I think 2 months ago, Coca-Cola announced that they're going to test paper bottles. Can you imagine if you can get your fizzy Coke drink or Sprite in a paper bottle? And more closer to home, actually Absolut as well promised that they would bring vodka into paper bottles. Of course, this would need to include like a thin layer of plastic inside, so the liquid wouldn't soak through the paper bottle. But vodka in a paper bottle, that would be something amazing, I think.
Well, I already mentioned those examples, so it is interesting, of course. Yes.
Pekka, what would you say? Like, vodka in a paper bottle.
Yeah, in fact, I wouldn't mind having them from the paper bottle. Not at all. But truly, I mean, what Annica said here, we are probably right now overwhelmed by the pandemic, and rightly so, because it's an immediate threat for us, and somehow I feel that the sustainability is pushed second behind the pandemic at this moment. But I'm sure that once we get on top of the pandemic, the sustainability will come up again, and I truly feel that companies and businesses should really take this urgency on. I think authorities, politicians, they have done most of their work already. They have raised the awareness of this one, but and of course they have means, they have legislations, they can force businesses to transform, they can force businesses to shut down, but that's not the way how we build our future for about 8 billion people on Earth. I think companies need to take it voluntarily. They need to embrace the sustainability, and they need to see it as a business opportunity, and that's how we can gain speed.
Jukka, talking about the public sector and politicians, are you sure that the politicians and the public sector has done enough? What do you think?
No, we have to do more, of course, but I think that we have to do it together. If we want to be more sustainable in the future, and if we want to build a better world, we have to do it together. And we have some new ideas of doing together. For example, we have a Helsinki metropolitan area Smart and Clean Foundation, which is trying to collaborate with cities, leading businesses, universities, research institutes, and state actors together to do the thing. And then the other idea I have is to do also the strategies together. For example, the story of Espoo, which is our city strategy, we have made it together with our residents. Even the 6-year-old preschoolers were co-creating our city strategy, and we made it together. And I think in sustainability, we especially need to do it together.
Jukka,
sorry, go ahead, Maria.
If I may follow up on that, super interesting. What did the 3-year-olds contribute to the city strategy? Can you give an example?
We need a lot of ice cream.
Yeah.
Okay.
But of course, we have a day as a mayor event for all the 6-year-old preschoolers, and I guarantee you, if the preschoolers are the mayors, we don't have any problems. They are really thinking about the sustainable world.
So maybe you should swap jobs for a day with them and see what happens.
Yeah, that's true.
I want to turn to Fredrik here because it links very well to what you were talking about, Jukka, and also the initial question by Kaius on sort of inspiration. I don't expect you to brag about your own initiatives, but I have been inspired by some of the public partnership initiatives that Novare has been behind during the pandemic. And one is called in Swedish Beredskapslyftet. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, thank you. What we did is a year ago, within 2 weeks, we actually started to train sacked SAS employees to go out and support the hospitals with simpler questions. I mean, simple matters. So I mean, for 2 weeks, in 2 weeks, we went from an idea to start a training at the Sophiahemmets University, and then they were started to work in the hospitals in Stockholm. And all in all, I think we did about 300 people. And we actually had a lot of discussions with Finnair if we could do the similar thing in Finland. Unfortunately, we never succeed, but at least we had discussions. So that was one example.
Yeah, and then also the last few years, you have had a lot of more social sustainability initiatives when it comes to the introduction of newly arrived immigrants on the labor market, both in Finland and Sweden.
Yeah, I mean, 6 years ago in Sweden, we decided that we want to find the potentials in the immigrants in Sweden. So we started the company 6 years ago. And a year ago, actually, we started the same company together with partners in Finland called Pointers Potential. So what we're doing is we are trying to see the huge potential in immigrants in Sweden and in Finland in order to get them jobs into our societies. And they are very, very good.
Those are great examples, and I'm just curious of we have been talking about this transformation and change for decades actually, and so really asking like, where's the news? So it would be actually interesting to hear about where do you pinpoint now the great change? Annica was very well telling about the big currents and the big issues behind, but what's the change for you personally and your business or field organizationally, like where you stand and how do you frame it? What would you say? For instance, Sandra, your company is under a great change all the time, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Bolt started off in Estonia in 2013, and now in 2021, we're in 40 countries around the world with more than 200 cities and 1.5 million drivers globally without actually owning any cars. So Bolt owns 0 cars. And last year, we expanded with the e-scooter service to 45 European cities. And now we're with Bolt Food also in 17 countries. So we expand continuously. And while the idea when Bolt was launched was already to reduce personal dependency on your own cars, now we still realize in 2021 that we facilitate or we intermediate millions of trips globally per day even. So this means they're mostly done with diesel or gasoline cars. So while we don't own those cars, we intermediate those rides, and we still, are partly responsible for those emissions. So we immediately started figuring out, what can we do to mitigate this? And in 2019, we launched our green plan, and we started offsetting the rides. Basically, we calculated the entire footprint of all of the rides that Bolt does in Europe, to the customer, with the customer to endpoint, what type of gas is used, how old this car is, what type of motor it uses, etc. And now we offset this to zero. Basically, we finance projects in the same amount that our trips emit, and now we're at zero, right? But of course, I mean, this is just a short-term solution. So what we're looking at now is how to get more electric cars on the platform and low-emission cars to go inherently more sustainable. But EVs, electric vehicles, are still a bit expensive. The battery technology is not that advanced. Even last September, when Elon Musk announced his new battery technology, it was so unimpressive, that his stock basically went down, and the range of the EVs is not that high yet. So it's a struggle, because currently our customers say we want sustainability, but we don't want to pay more for it. And if EVs are twice the price of a regular car, it eventually is going to cost a bit more for the customer. So right now we're at this very difficult position. Like, what do we do to actually reduce our impact on the environment and actually not put the burden on the customer? So we came out with e-scooters, micromobility. These are very low emission vehicles, but still, if you need to do a longer trip, you're not going to do it with an e-scooter. So yeah, these are some of the struggles we're facing.
Very interesting indeed. How do you portray the change, Pekka? What would you say? Where's the big change? What comes? I mean, you're from the business, which is very sort of like traditional, and we're talking about like services for mining and aggregates and metal refining and recycling and so forth. So what do you think? How to change the company into sustainable?
Like I think what Sandra brought up, saying that yes, we can transform ways how we do things, how we move from place to another, but this will not really happen unless the industry behind it also changes. I mean, there's no batteries on e-scooters unless someone produces metals, and of course we all understand that electrification is is solution to climate. But whenever we talk about electrification, we do need more metals, and it's not only battery metals. We need. I've started to talk recently more about electrification metals, and battery metals are just some of them. But copper is a big time electrification metal. Every electric motor needs copper. Transmission lines need copper or aluminium. And then comes the battery or energy storages, batteries, referring normally to car batteries or scooter batteries, but we will need some sort of energy storages of bigger scale as well. And we need yet again metals. And therefore, it's important that these metals that is solution and are solution to climate change for that part, they need to be produced in a clean way. And this is how we approach the business. We of course need to be sustainable, and we can cut emissions in, and we have done a great deal of that one already in our own operations. But far more we can do together with our customers, with our technology, with our products. And that's the main driver of our business at this moment, and the whole approach. But yet again, it's a cultural change inside the company. It's also a cultural change in society. We need to accept that at least in the beginning, sustainability will be more costly for us. Someone will have to pay the bill of transformation. Then we will get used to it. We will get more efficient with it, and that might be another story. But cultural change.
Cultural change. Before handing to Maria to Stockholm, I just want to ask, like Jukka, what do you think about the public-private cooperation and sector? Because Annica was talking about the vaccination part, and that's a very, very important issue now. Now talking about the public-private area. I mean, there must be so much room, for the cooperation and new possibilities. What is the grade you would give, for the public-private, at this point,
I think this is very important question. I think for a city, this is the most important question, that we need a lot more public-private collaboration. As you mentioned, that a few years ago, European Union made a study about sustainability and cities, and they were using economical, ecological, social, and cultural criteria. And the city of Espoo was ranked to be the most sustainable city in Europe. Of course, we are very proud, and we are trying to keep our growth sustainable also in the future. Also, a few years ago, we won a title, the most intelligent city in the world, 2018. And of course, I was very proud, but I have a little bit difficulties with this, the most intelligent city in the world, because I have been a mayor for 10 years, and before that I was the chairman of the city council, and I know all our bureaucracy, and I guarantee you that I don't feel that intelligent in my everyday life, and I think it's quite easy to believe. And I think the point is not to be the most sustainable city or the most sustainable, the most intelligent city. The point is to be the most sustainable and most intelligent community. And it means that you need to do a lot of collaboration, especially with companies and universities. In the city of Espoo, it means that we have an opportunity to do collaboration with Aalto University, with research centers like VTT, and companies like Nokia. And it means that I think our strength, it might be our strength in the whole Scandinavia, lies in the way we collaborate in our innovation ecosystem with our residents, with communities, universities, and companies and startups. And I think that's very important for a city. I think the role of a city is changing all the time.
Fredrik, you wanted to jump in, but may I just ask you, I think, we're talking about the next generation of business, and your core business is leadership and HR. Are there something new when it comes to building teams and, the leadership characters?
I would say that, in the past and still, and it is very important, we are looking a lot when we are recruit CEOs, about their business skills, their industry skills, their track record, of course, leadership. But I think in the future, we have to emphasize more and more on the personal traits, energy, drive, in Finnish, sisu, endurance, all these kind of personal traits, because communication skills, of course, fingerspitzengefühl. So, I think we have to emphasize more and more on the person, and the fact that the CEO or a mayor, after 10 years, my recommendation is you should finish your job now and take a new job, because, if you're the most intelligent guy, just stop it so you don't, if you stay too long, you might lose your job. So I think that, and that is also, that is also a thing that, in the past, you could have CEOs for 15, 20 years. I think a CEO should be there for at least for 7 to 10 years. But it's shrinking. And now, the speed, which is good for my industry, but I think is very bad for business and for the culture sector, is to replace CEOs too often. That is not sustainability to me. And I think Annica's speech was excellent. And my final comment is that what we need to do in Sweden and Finland is to get rid of the silos between business, academia, the government, and the cities, and start to collaborate, as you said, Annica. I think it's excellent, because that we need to do without criticizing each other, just focus on action.
Yes.
Very good. Actually, let's turn to some comments and questions from our audience. There's Ian Anthony from CIPRI is actually saying that if companies are going to drive change globally, how can they organize themselves at the necessary scale? Is the financial sector the key driver? Well, actually, I mean, talking about financial sector on our next discussion, but it would be actually interesting to hear, like, Annica, what would you say, like, you know, about the scale? This is an important question, actually.
Yeah, it is very important question and a very difficult one to answer. If we look at kind of investment community, what was said before by many of our speakers is, of course, you have to have a vision where you want to end up. What do you want to accomplish as a company, as a community, and so on. But then you need to have not overregulate things, neither from a policy perspective, but also from a company perspective, because then you kind of kill the creativity and the innovativeness and also the local perspective. So at the same time as you need kind of a central approach, a company approach to what is the direction, you still need to have an organization that is empowered on a local level that can make decisions and drive actions in big and small in the local communities where you are present. We are a global company. We have sales in 50 different countries around the world, and the challenges vary from one country to another and how we can contribute. So here it's about a leadership that empowers people in the local communities to take action. It is, as a company, to have clear priorities of what really makes a difference, because otherwise it's very easy that you dilute your efforts and you try to do it all. And there we set, for instance, kind of the prices of carbon to drive innovation in the right direction, so that we encourage innovation that is using less carbon emissions or water footprint or whatever it is. And then from the investment community, green bonds, for instance, to kind of fund areas where we need to make this transformation and where there is a need for significant investment funds to take the leap. So this kind of network and ecosystems are the most important areas to create and to foster.
Great. And then there's a comment from great innovator Peter Westerbacka that he's actually agreeing that we need more private-public partnership, and that this has been a strength of Finland and the whole finest Bay Area always. It's actually a nice idea having this kind of a Baltic Bay Area thinking. I like that. Astrid Turs is actually asking, is EU taxonomy a threat to Nordic sustainability? And talking about the Nordic cooperation, is it, you know, how do you feel, how much possibilities there are at this finest Bay Area? And is EU taxonomy part, could that be a problem? What do you think, Pekka?
Well, to me, it shouldn't be, but yet we should truly find each other's again within the Nordics, because we share so many things, and yet we are quite small as individual countries, even within Europe. But we share really a lot of cultural things. We share values. Amongst them, when we specifically focus on sustainability, I think we have great examples how Finland and Sweden, for example, both are driving the development in same directions. Companies have found each other. There's customer-supplier relationships that go across the border and are really doing world-leading things between themselves. So somehow I feel that there is more we can do together here up in the north, but it shouldn't sort of compete with the EU at the same time.
Annica.
I don't see EU taxonomy as a threat because it drives the funds in the direction where we want them to go to build up the future societies. However, if it's becomes an over-regulated environment where there are regulations on very detailed level, that's when you risk also killing creativity, killing innovation, and making kind of the wrong assumptions. So this is the balance we need to strike, having enough targets on an enough high level, but that allowing businesses to really find the solutions and not having kind of politically chosen solutions as predefined as the best ones. Because frankly, we do not know how our society is going to look 2, 5, 10 years from now. So there needs to be this flexibility in choices.
Okay, so Sandra, you were actually nodding while Annica was speaking. So if you get the final word, so go ahead.
So actually, it's a surprising note that I'm going to make, because having worked in the government, we always believed, that regulation should be tech neutral, exactly as Annica said, not too much regulation, let's not over-regulate things. Now that actually I've switched to private sector, I see that some regulation is still needed, because otherwise certain companies or even regions do not understand how do they have to keep up with the pace of sustainability. So I fully agree with Annica in a way that let's not over-regulate this, please. But it seems that user demand and perhaps business-driven interest needs to be guided somehow still with the regulation. So I do support some form of regulatory framework for all of this, but yes, please, let's not over-regulate.
Okay, Maria, over to you.
So maybe the trick is to come up with smart or intelligent regulation.
Espoo can help here.
We are trying our best.
I would like to thank all of you panelists. This has been a great discussion.